Welcome to my basement, everybody. Special 2 basements in 1 week, and the second time with my great friend and my co-host in this Vic's basement, a fellow dad. So cool. Ben Silverman, and we are here to talk about Quantum Break because the embargo has lifted. We couldn't really talk about it yesterday, although we did. We just didn't talk about it with you guys. But today we can talk about it with you guys and get into it. My review is being cut right now by our good friend Alec, who is working with us right now. Thank you, Alec. He's looking through hours of footage right now, and he hates me. And I'm sure, did you do a review for Yahoo, Ben?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'm working on my review as we speak.
Okay.
Here, like, can you see my fingers?
Yeah, you're working hard, man.
What
Yeah,
it looks like.
I can see the sweat underneath the new hat that you've got on today. I appreciate that.
With these giant headphones, if I don't wear a hat, it just makes my hair look ridiculous, like a cone head.
Maybe that's the future. I have kind of ridiculous hair, and I always have had ridiculous hair. But maybe the future is like we just all have ridiculous hair because we're taking our VR headsets and our headphones off all the time.
Yeah, it's either that or you get lines. You get lines right around here. You look like you've been scuba diving for 3 weeks.
And actually, you do. You have. I can see. Do you have a bit of a line on you? Did you get your Oculus Rift? Did that come? Oh, you know what it is.
No. I don't sleep, Vic.
Oh, you don't sleep. Okay.
Thanks for that.
Oh, sorry, buddy. You know what it is? It's the shadow coming off of your glasses, so it's all good. So it's all good. But anyways, we're not talking VR. We're not talking about being dads. Although we're both very grateful fathers. Thank you to our wives and our kids who put up with us. But let's talk about Quantum Break. I almost said Quantum Rift, which I'm sure will be a game name soon. But Quantum Break from Remedy and Xbox. I think the people, they want to know if this game is a good one and if it's going to sell some Xbox Ones and if it's a must-play and a must-buy. And, it would have come up head-to-head, I kind of feel, with Uncharted 4 if that didn't slide a little bit. Pretty close. Anyways, what do you think of the game, my friend?
Well, lucky for Quantum Break, it did not go up head-to-head against Uncharted, because I don't think Quantum Break would do very well going up against anything in particular.
No.
I think this is a disappointing game. This has got to be a disappointment, right? I mean, I don't know how much money they poured into it, but I'm going to go ahead and say a shitload. Let's just go with shitload.
Or a shit ton, maybe.
Shit ton.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been in development forever. Was it initially a launch title for the Xbox One or a launch window title? I feel like it at least was announced at the very beginning of the Xbox One, right? So we knew it's been coming. We know they've been working on it for a long time. And, I mean, there's some things about it I don't think are terrible. I mean, I think it's got some decent time-bending powers. It reminds you a little bit at times of Max Payne, which makes sense because it's Remedy. Maybe a less so Alan Wake. I mean, they definitely channel some elements from both of those games. But I think the problem here, and really what it boils down to for me with Quantum Break, is what they're trying to do is they're trying to make a great video game, and they're trying to make a great television show at the same time.
And they didn't do either.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's incredibly ambitious and incredibly hard to do.
Yeah.
And I admire their balls and their moxie for trying to do something like this.
And mostly Microsoft for financing something like this.
For greenlighting something that's crazy. I mean, if I said we're going to make a video game and we're also going to make 2.5 hours or 2 hours worth of a television show starring some pretty significant people. I mean, this has got a legit cast, half of the Wire's in it.
I love Sean Ashmore too. I think everything he's in, he is very good. He's just a solid actor. Both he and his brother, I forget the other Ashmore. They're both
Aaron Ashmore.
Aaron Ashmore. They're both terrific actors, and they're very solid. And they've played a whole bunch of different cool genre characters, and I think Jack Joyce as a character in this game is in the plus column. I think it's always fun to see Lance Reddick be Lance Reddick in everything that he's in.
Just looking mad at things. I don't think you should do that.
We need a Lance Reddick type. Who should we cast? I feel like I need to put on my surly face, but he is amazing at being surly. You're doing a pretty good job of being
pretty good, Lance Reddick.
Or a Muppet version of Lance Reddick right now.
Which like nothing bad.
It's like Frankenstein's monster. But yeah, he's fine. And what's his name? Aiden
Aiden Gillen or Gillian?
Yeah, I mean, Littlefinger, right, or Carcetti from The Wire. I mean, the cast is good, and I don't think the performances are terrible. I just think the script, the plot, if you look just at the show, if you kind of tear the show out of the game, it would be a totally forgettable Sci-Fi Channel pilot. It wouldn't even be a show that you like invested in.
Yeah, and part of I think the problem with it is that they endeavor to put a whole bunch of focus on ancillary characters and supporting characters, which aren't really a part of the game. I mean, they're tangentially attached to the game, and I know it's in an effort to kind of embellish the fiction and grow the world, but it reminded me of that first Matrix game that Shiny made, where it was a bait and switch. It's like, well, I want to be Neo. No, you can't be Neo. You got to be. I can't forget. I honestly can't remember who we played.
Just come up with an extreme name, like what do you? I don't know. What's it good? A doorknob.
Doorknob, yeah.
Doorknob. You can play as doorknob.
You can play as doorknob. So in the show, we're watching Liam Burke and his pregnant wife, and then we meet some hacker guy, and he has this flirtation with this woman, and every once in a while in the game, you hear them chatter in, but they bill it with Aidan Gillen. Is it Gillian or Gillen? Aidan Gillen, I think. Anyways, he's great, and Lance Reddick is great, and Sean Ashmore is great, and Dominic Monaghan plays Sean Ashmore's brother. He's also great, and I just feel like they could have just spent more time on that. I feel like they could have spent more time on everything. Like the game needed more time, and the show needed more time. It feels like they should have maybe released some of this content earlier and let us sort of get to know the fiction.
It could have been episodic. I mean, I'm not a fan of that in general, but it's broken up by episodes when you play through the game. Just also, let's explain sort of how this works, because I think a lot of people aren't sure how it all ties together.
Sure.
This is not like Defiance, where you have a video game and then you like tune in at 7 p.m. and you watch a show.
No.
This is, you play a video game, you play through one act, there are 5 acts in the game, you play through an act. At the end of that act, it gives you what's called a junction point, where you can choose to do one thing or another thing. And there's basically 2 paths. And when you do that junction point, you're playing as the villains. And I do like that in the main game, you're playing as a hero, you get to the junction point, and as a villain, you sort of choose, do I do this or do I do this? That then dictates what episode you're going to watch of this television show. And then it theoretically streams right into your Xbox. You watch 24 minutes of basically a Sci-Fi Channel show, and then it spits you back out into the game for the next act, and then you're shooting stuff again, and on it goes. So I like that it's interwoven, and I think it's a cool idea that you don't have to leave the game the way you would in Defiance to like go watch the show and then come back. It's like it feels sort of seamless going back and forth, except there's so many little technical problems that hold it back. I mean, one of the things I talked about, it streaming, it was content buffering city for me.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of that is early release, but this is going to be interesting as the game actually ships to hear the feedback from people out there too.
Dude, I can stream an entire season of Daredevil on my iPhone, sitting in bed, halfway across the house from my router. Yeah. I had this thing plugged in, and it was still having issues buffering in. So I mean, I don't know if there is a problem. That's ridiculous.
Well, and I tried to rewind because I was getting bored, and I was like, okay, I'm checking Twitter, and I missed something, and I couldn't rewind. It totally spit me out and crashed everything. It's like, okay, all right, but I don't know.
This isn't. I mean, streaming technology and streaming a show is not innovative or interesting anymore.
You're right.
That's all we do. So like the fact that they're like, you can stream it is like, that's not that exciting, guys. That's just how. Or
you can install the whole 75 gigs onto your hard drive if you've got the space for it, and put all that video on there. And I agree with you. I think it's cool that they have interwoven it all, and I also think it's cool that the story branches depending on your choice, and you'll get different video content. You can also augment by finding these little things they call quantum ripples, which will add little mysterious widgets inside and secrets inside the video content. But I wasn't really invested enough in the story that I really cared that much, frankly. I liked the story. I liked the idea of this rogue scientist that builds a time travel device in a high school gymnasium. I think that's cool, and or a university gymnasium. And I like that he asks for his brother's help, and his brother gets roped into all of this stuff, and there's an evil corporation that wants to exploit this, and I think that there is some pretty cool concepts in there, and it does feel like the idea probably was bigger and larger and scoped out to be a more interesting end result than what we got. I feel like a lot was chopped out of this thing, and the scope shrunk because there's not much game, and that's the biggest problem with this thing, is that you don't really feel like you're ever you can't take the reins off and really have fun with all these cool powers that you have.
Yeah, and I mean, let's talk about that for a minute. So basically, you know, as this character Jack Joyce, you get the ability to manipulate time, and what that mostly means is you can like throw up a time block that'll sort of like freeze a guy in place, and you can shoot at it, and then it'll blow him up. You can put up a little shield, and then the most powerful one by far, eventually you get the ability to kind of run really quickly. It kind of freezes the world, and you like are running around behind guys and punching them.
Yeah.
And those are fine and interesting and pretty video gamey, but yeah, it just never feels like it's developed at all. Like, you've got this lame upgrade system. Finding upgrades requires you to like press a button in the world to like find a hidden object. So you're like, every level, all you're really doing is searching for those little upgrade things.
Yeah,
and
they're
then
little glowing balls of light, and there's all kinds of lens flare, sort of flashy things on screen, and glitches in the environment because everything's got a time, you know.
Yeah, you never really know what's a glitch or what's a power up. So you're like,
interesting way to develop a game like that, right?
It was just sort of a bad idea. I mean, but even just the flow of every level is you know, searching for those things. You occasionally run into some enemies that are always very easy to dispatch. I mean, they're pretty dumb, and you're way overpowered. You've got a million different guns. Everywhere there's guns. There's just guns lying all over the place. Yeah. None of them feel special or interesting. They all feel like they're basically exactly the same.
And the guys you fight feel exactly the same. It's
they're over the entire
video game, you know, character design.
At one point, you finally get to guys who kind of have similar time powers, and that at least adds some sort of strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's very brief. That's it. It's like there's 7 in the whole game. So the shooting doesn't really hold up. And then the other thing you do on every level, what you're mostly doing, is running around looking for like emails.
Yeah.
It's like you're just going up to computers and chalkboards, and you're like reading a chalkboard, and it's like, you found a narrative thing.
Yes.
And there's 18 of them to find on the level. These emails that you find on, like, I mean, you probably find 50 of them, 60 over the course of the game, and they're like fucking huge email. Like, who writes an email that's no one writes? Usually just writes like, cool, BRB, see you later, bye. Like, this is like a giant email. Like,
let me tell you a story.
It's gonna
half an hour later. Yeah,
and scroll through every email.
I was talking with my friend Casey last night, and he loves the game, and he was reading everything, and he was totally invested in all of that, but it just didn't capture it. And I think I would have cared more about the show, because the game is why you buy this thing. It's a game, right? So if the game was awesome, I would have cared more about the story. Like, one of the games that this really reminded me of and made me Jones for was Infamous. You know, Second Son was kind of a broken game because it was a really cool game with a really lame story. And the reason why it was such a lame story is because the game was really cool. It looked beautiful, and you had awesome powers, and then all you wanted was that extra kind of oomph to get it over the top, to be just this unbelievable celebration of what the medium can be, and it didn't quite get there. In this case, the game isn't strong enough for me to really care about the narrative that would have brought it up. And if it had been the other way around, if the narrative was great, it would have been nice, but I still would have felt let down overall because the game is just kind of generic. It doesn't exploit these cool powers enough. There's none of that, you know, like climbing to the top of a beautiful building in Assassin's Creed and looking out over the vista and realizing I get all of this to explore. There's no moment like that. There's no moment.
No, it's super linear. I mean, it's really a linear, very small game, even though you're kind of traveling all over this city and going in and out of time, and you're like going to cool places. Well, what should be cool places, except every level is a fucking dock or a warehouse. It's like, how many warehouses am I in? It's an entire city of warehouses.
Well, I mean, it's corridors where you look for shiny glowing things in emails, and then it's arenas that give you enough room to skate around with your time powers. It's kind of like skate gun fu, I think, which I liked. I got into the mechanics, and then the game would say, okay, that's enough of that. Let's go back looking for emails, or let's watch a show now. And I just wanted, you know, it's almost like if they had made twice the amount of what they made to play, I would have felt like, okay, this has got some meat. maybe embellish the enemies a bit more so that there's a little bit more variety there. But the mechanics are sound. It's a fun experience to play. I felt like they had a dog collar on me and said, "Okay, that's enough. You can't play anymore."
Yeah, that's a problem. Although I would disagree about the mechanics being sound. I thought that actually controlling him was a little weird. Even the aiming didn't feel that tight to me. It didn't feel like snappy. It feels like it's a game where you snap into cover, so you don't have to press a button every time you run up to something. You go into cover, which worked okay. But oftentimes I would freeze a guy and I would try to run up and clobber him or something, and you're moving around kind of jerky. It's hard to aim and target guys the right way. It just doesn't feel like it's got that tuning that you need out of a really tight third-person shooter.
Plus, old video game no-no tropes like invisible walls and not being able to pull your gun out because you're in a corridor sequence that doesn't allow you to look, like basically puppeteering you all the way and then guiding you to the next linear experience. And
the checkpoints. Can we talk about the checkpoints? I tweeted about the checkpoints, and I don't want to give away the end of this game at all, but fucking motherfucker. I just have to talk to, if there's any developers watching, you're probably right. But listen, if you're making a video game and you insist on having your own checkpoint system, it means I can't save when I want. It's going to auto checkpoint me, and I'm going to have to, if I die, I have to restart there. Never put it before a cutscene.
Never.
Especially when you try to skip that cutscene, it goes to a loading screen.
Right.
Which happens in a huge sequence in this game where you die over and over again, and you have to
and you don't know why you're dying.
Right.
You don't, because you haven't died like that at any other point in the game.
It's like a brand new way to die, and you're like, what? And then you just keep going this thing. And then even beyond that, just often the checkpoints were just insane. And why is it all the way back there? It shouldn't be all the way back there.
Yeah.
Not that the game was that difficult. It's not that hard of a game. It's just these stupid little design flaws pop out. Another thing that drives me crazy, and this is, I realize this is going to sound totally unfair, so I'm not going to just ding Quantum Break for this. But it was one of those games where you're with a guy, and it's follow Mark. So you're like, okay, I'm going to follow Mark. Mark's walking that way, and your character moves twice as fast as Mark. So Mark's walking real slow, going well, here's the thing about time travel. And you're like, there's arrows on the door, so you run over to the door.
Let's go! Come on!
And Mark's just well, another thing about time travel is, you're like, Mark, I'm fucking all the way up here, Mark. And you can still hear Mark crystal clear, although he's all the way over there.
That would be a great thing to be adding into the game design, is stuff like that, where suddenly you have the ability to press a button and call them over, and the character could say, oh, okay, I didn't know it was such a hurry there. Let's do it. And add a little bit of humanity to that experience. That'd
there was some game, I don't know if it was The Witcher, I can't remember if it was The Witcher 3, but some games will lock your animation to match the speed of the guy you're walking with.
Right.
I like that, because even though it's, why aren't I walking quickly? At least it's I get it, I'm supposed to listen to this person and walk with them. But instead it breaks down its immersion constantly and makes you feel like I'm playing a video game. And that stands in such a stark contrast to the television show segments where you're not in control of any of it. I mean, you can control obviously the junction points, but you're just sort of sitting back letting this thing wash over you. And I think if what I can't wrap my head around is that we've talked about how it feels rushed and it feels like there's not enough time to develop this stuff. Yeah. But if you look at both sides of that, there is a ton of time. I don't know how many hours you're going to get out of it. 10, 15 hours if you play the thing. Yeah. If you think of any show or anything that gives you 10 or 15 hours from start to finish, you should be able to develop relationships, love stories. You should be able to develop interesting characters that have complexities, and they do that.
They get there, but they don't with their characters and with moments, especially between Jack and Beth Wilder, and we see.
I mean, they barely touch on that one.
They don't go far enough. Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I think I liked it a little more than you, and I think I gave it huge points for being so ambitious. But I agree, it's a disappointment, and it should have been better, especially with all of this hype and time and the pedigree involved, and the importance to Xbox One. This is a game that really needed to be Uncharted quality and Last of Us kind of quality, and it's just not. It's unfortunate. It does make me wonder why a game studio or a company like this would put all of those resources and all of that attention into something completely brand new. I mean, it's brand new as a game concept and a game TV hybrid to begin with. Why wouldn't they do that with something we were already familiar with? You know, why wouldn't this be like a Walking Dead derivation, you know, or a Marvel thing or a Star Wars thing? You know, I feel like that would have been the wiser money spent and something that us as players and fans of all this stuff would have gone crazy for, you know? And a lot of the design stuff would have kind of been handled for them in some ways. But
yeah,
they had a lot of things to push them against the wall, and I think it's really commendable that they have anything that even is playable and watchable in this at all. I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean they achieved what they set out to achieve, which was a video game and a TV show that were sort of intermingling, and that it in that sense it functions, it works the way it's supposed to work. So this isn't something that feels totally stripped of features. This is nowhere near their original vision. It's near it. It's just it's too small everywhere. I mean, the game isn't interesting enough. It's not deep enough to really be an enjoyable game. And then the storytelling, I think, doesn't go far enough to make you care a ton about these characters. And so when you don't have both sides of that, you just sort of feel like you're, like what you were saying, you were checking Twitter when the show's playing, because you don't get invested in that. Yeah. And we're talking about a world now with, you know, Game of Thrones about to start up, with Daredevil. We have like a million options and things to watch and games to play. We've got, you know, look, I don't know if you can see Dark Souls.
Whoa.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I've got other fucking things to do these days.
Well, and the other thing that we're missing, too, is that, you know, there was a time when we would get like 4 or 5 of these types of new ideas a month in the gaming industry, where there were teams of people working on stuff like this, and they would come out and they would be creatively and critically successful to a degree, because the risk-taking was, you know, something that we all kind of relished and really enjoyed. Now they have to kill it because it's the lone, you know, oasis out there. It's like, oh my God, we've carved out all of April for Quantum Break, and there's nothing else to really, you know, get super excited about in this month because we've spent everything on this thing. And so all of that expectation and hype and all of that potential for being let down is all slapped onto this game, and it's unfortunate, you know, because it's risks like this that push our medium forward. And certainly when you play it, you can see that VR with this kind of design is going to happen again and again and again. I mean, this is going to be something that future game/linear content makers are going to point to and say, well, they did it, we can do it, let's just make it better, you know.
But I don't know, though. I find myself struggling to enjoy games that are somehow, you know, working with a live action show. I don't know if I'm interested in the mixing of these kinds of media. Like, you know, Defiance is another example of this, where I just, you know, running around ridiculously killing and shooting everything in a video game world, and then watching a show that's got like nuance and drama and stuff, and then you're thrust back into a world where all you do is blow shit up. Yeah. That's the same thing in this game. It's not like this is an adventure game where I could see this working with a Telltale game or something where the storytelling and the game experience is similar or in harmony with the storytelling of the show. That's not the case here. When I'm playing as Jack Joyce, I fucking murdered everybody. I mean, I killed. That's it. I mean, I didn't do anything else. If I was in, like, gruesomely, like there were some brutal moments of both the show and in the game, in particular in the game where you're just really killing everybody. And then meanwhile, I'm supposed to go back to the show and, like, you know, care about this character and the mom and the you know, she's pregnant and this and that, and it's like you can't.
There's no reality in the game side of it.
No,
you know,
the games just blow shit up. It's
and even in the best narrative designed action adventure games, which I think are coming from Naughty Dog right now, it does feel incongruous. Even in Uncharted, you know, the lighthearted kind of playfulness. And then when you really sit down to kind of look at the amount of murder that Nathan Drake commits, it doesn't fit, you know?
It's crazy.
It did fit with The Last of Us, though. Somehow that fiction and the sort of thematic kind of through line all kind of clicked, and you could kind of make sense of how much carnage there was, and it made it all much more vital and scary and frightening. And
well, I mean, you're talking about probably the most powerful video game of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, that was an incredible achievement as far as making every death feel kind of important in a way.
And unfortunately for Quantum Break, we're in a post Last of Us world, and we're on new tech, new hardware, new expectations, new pressures.
A lot of things going against this game.
Yeah.
And I mean also, I know it's hard to tell a story, but like, if you're gonna fuck around with time travel, which is like been really well worn, and people have done a lot with time travel,
and it's really hard.
It's really hard to do that, and without it just looking silly. And like, they managed to at least not like make me every 5 minutes go like, that's not how. Like I wasn't like pointing out all their flaws, but like, it's just not necessarily the right way to go. I mean, giant office buildings, like a company called Monarch, and they're evil. It's so two-dimensional, and compared to the drama and nuance you get out of television shows that you're just going to sit down and watch, something like, again, Daredevil or Jessica Jones or something.
Yeah.
I know I'm focusing on superheroes, but these are stories that could easily,
dude.
And these are shows.
Honestly, Daredevil turned into a video game. Like that's
kind of did, right?
Like let's do it. Yeah, he's fighting ninjas by the end of the second season. It's just armies of ninjas. That's a game, man. Why didn't Disney and Netflix and Microsoft do a deal around that? That would have been incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are better matches for this kind of thing than Quantum. And as much as I've been harshing on it, and I've certainly been harshing on it, I think I've called it a Sci-Fi Channel throwaway mashed into a half-cocked Max Payne, is I think what I was kind of my general attitude about this game. But I agree with you that the ambition is great, and I agree that the fact that Microsoft would even allow this kind of thing to go on this long and put it out into the world.
Do you know if they've got DLC coming? Do you know if there's more? Because it feels like you beat it and you can maybe see the scenes again. But
you can see new scenes, right? I mean, the idea is you go to a junction part, you play it again, and you get different stuff. And that's actually really impressive. I think a lot of people, especially reviewers, haven't necessarily gone through all that yet because we've got the game and played it. But you can go back through and you get different experiences. The problem is it still boils down to a not great show and a not great game, even if you have a different scene or a different approaching it. It doesn't feel like it ever becomes great.
The game should have been great, man. It should have been as innovative as Max Payne. And because he has powers, it should have been as innovative as Infamous too. I mean, I those are the things that I kept thinking about. It wasn't even as fun as Max Payne 3, which they didn't make, but kind of showed us kind of what a more contemporary Max Payne could be, and that was a ton of fun. It was a stupid game with a stupid story, but holy shit, was that a fun game to play.
A stupid story, but like a drug-fueled, crazy, like Brazil. I mean, it was like looked crazy, bright colors everywhere. It just felt vibrant. Max Payne 3 did, at least. This game is another gray, washed out. Like the look of it, the feel of it. You're like,
everybody's
this
in
is
masks,
not.
All the bad.
This isn't what we need. This is not what we need. I mean, the idea of it's cool. This is not the way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I look forward to reading your review, and we'll do this again on something else big that's coming up soon. Maybe Uncharted.
Who knows?
Maybe Uncharted.
Could be.
That was great, brother. Thank you very much. Oh, you know what? We might have a question or two. Why don't we take a couple of questions? Thank you, everybody, for watching, by the way. I'm sorry we had our moment together.
There were... Vic, there was a couple of questions about the streaming, the TV show streaming.
Yeah.
People were wondering, could you clarify, it's streaming only, right? You can't download them?
No, you can... did you hear that, Ben?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, yeah, no, you can stream the show off of the internet through it'll automatically sync up and start streaming all the content when you get past those junction points. But you can also just download everything to the hard drive, and then it'll run presumably smoother. I did not have 76 gigs of space on my Xbox One to download all that video.
Yeah, I don't know if you can download one at a time. I think it said at some point, I remember it saying download episode, but it only would give that as an option for me when the buffering wasn't working, and it would be like, you have a problem with your internet connection. Would you like to download the episode? And I'm like, wait, I have a problem with my internet connection. How the fuck am I going to download 10 gigs of, like, what do you...
That does not make sense.
I think that works.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah.
No, that was it? Okay. So we'll see how this one does. I mean, Microsoft needs some good triples, man. I mean, this isn't quite a home run, but I'm pulling for them. I want them to have some stuff that really excites people and draws them to that console. I love that they I mean, their tagline has been the best Xbox games in our lineup ever for the last year, and this was one of those games, right? This was one of their hallmark experiences. So yeah,
yep.
You know, I hope that the next round of stuff that they've got is really gonna crush it. Dark Souls 3, I think, is
Dark Souls 3
apparently available for Xbox One. There it is. Yeah,
it's available for Xbox.
Oh, they can't see your TV, buddy.
Oh, God damn it!
He's leaning over and showing off. He's got.
I've got a
little Xbox One version of Dark Souls 3 behind him.
That's right, I do. That's what I'm playing right now. So, yeah. So, by the way, not an easy switch from Quantum Break to Dark Souls 3.
Right.
It doesn't make Quantum Break look much better.
Yeah, I mean, I kept wanting to go back to the Division when I was playing Quantum Break. So,
yeah.
Love you, Remedy. Still love you. Still love the ambition. But love you, Ben Silverman. Thank you so much for being on the show, and thanks everybody for watching. We'll be back next week with new content, and have a great weekend, everybody. Stitcher!